In the world of horror games, the law of the land will always be feast or famine, or Five Nights at Freddy's. You either rise up the ranks of the all-time classics or you are pummeled straight down into disappointing obscurity. Which makes sense. Unless you have a grim beard or hunt spheres, you probably don't gorge yourself on scary stuff. You might get the urge to play a spooky game once or twice a year, so you better just stick with the best ones. The problem with that is that the horror genre might just have the largest belly section of mediocre to subpar games around. Just check the old Metacritic to find a sea of yellow as far as the eye can see. Today, I feel like sailing. It's time to crack open this grab bag of culturally lost thrillers with 3 games that maybe didn't change the world, but still have some guts worth gorging on. For your viewing pleasure, I chose an old game, a new game, and a little title right in the middle. To kick things off, we go way back to the NES to talk about what might be the first game to get crushed on YouTube. Like every dork on the internet, I have made it a personal mission to beat every Castlevania game, a decision as difficult as actually trying to kill a vampire. When you talk about Simon's Quest, 2 things come to mind. You first think about how much you love the other NES offerings, and then you reminisce on how the nerd absolutely destroyed this game's legacy. Both of these thoughts are hyper valid. The first game was a pioneer of the newfangled world of home consoles, while Castlevania 3 took those lessons and wrote the handbook for Gothic platforming. In comparison, Simon's Quest is this extremely cryptic and often unfair game. It's also pretty great. I don't know. Just off the bat, there's this great sense of exploration, extreme variety in enemies and weapons, but most importantly, a great diversity in landscape. From the woods to the swamp, up to graveyards and down into cave holes, all strung together with these little towns serving up as bastions of hope whenever you need them. All of this is amplified by the presentation. Instead of the big boxy borders seen before and after, all you get is this Mega Man style health bar opening the screen so you can soak up the horizon. And once you compare it to the other titles primarily taking place in or adjacent to a castle, this atmosphere is night and day. Literally. I know everyone likes to think of this transition as a huge annoying point of contingency, but I promise when you actually play this game, it has a completely different feeling. Nighttime can double enemy health and fills the towns with various ghouls. Daybreak brings you back to an uncomfortable ease as you regain the opportunities of civilization. The sad thing is that most people aren't gonna get to find this kind of layered experience in this game, and I don't blame them. Like a lot of 8-bit outings, Simon makes a rough first impression. Aimless wandering pairs with deadly pits like orange juice pairs with toothpaste. Luckily, I might have found you the solution. Just cheat. Use a guide, watch a walkthrough. If I learned anything from covering the Zelda series, it's that NES games are meant to have supplementary materials. Ain't nothing more supplementary than the literal answer. The one thing I wouldn't do is use save states or rewind. This game really shines when it comes to combat. There's a flawless progression of power in this game. Buying all your secondary weapons, planning out your laurels for their quick immunity, and leveling up the whip from a noodle to a Korean noodle. And you'll need every bit of that damage. Like an inverted Dragon's Quest, every boss is a complete pushover and your biggest threat is blobs. Hey, and if you toss in some insanely cryptic progression, wild conversations, and multiple mandatory poisonous rivers, I figure it's an easy sell to any of you that love that game that shall not be named. Besides, this game is cultural history now. If you're watching this video, it means that you like YouTube videos where some dork talks about video games. And James Rolfe pioneered the whole format with this silly little game. Actually getting to ride this tornado and kill Dracula by stun-locking him with fire is a rite of passage, and it's something I can easily recommend. There's not something I can say for the next game. Siren is a PS2 title directed by Kichiro Toyama, former director of Team Silent. You know, them Silent Hill folk. Instead of moving towards the unbelievable legacy of Silent Hill 2, he broke away to make a handful of underwhelming games. And Gravity Rush. The 6th generation was drowning in survival horror, some of which are completely untouchable legends. This is where we find Siren and all its little fascinations. I adore this game just about as much as I hate it. But let's talk about the good stuff. The atmosphere is beautifully dreadful. Thick fog rolls through the back roads of Japan. Everyone you talk to has this extremely uncanny face, blending and blurring with each frame into this cacophony of emotion. The titular ability lets you focus in on sights, rotating the analog stick in the direction of anyone around you, be they allies or abominations. Whenever your cover is blown, you flick over to their vision, giving you an idea of the punishment in store. If you get a whiff of a rifle, you better start praying because you are weak as hell. The 3rd level sets you up to walk forward and immediately get shot in the neck and have you hard reset, which is exactly how I want a scary game to treat me. The soundtrack is foreboding and ethereal, perfectly paired with the boggy undercurrents of these folk environment. It's the same ingenuity and fresh approach that made the Silent Hill games thrive. That is everything good I can say about this game. Here's the other side of the coin. The voice acting is atrocious. Classic British dub where everything sounds like the room it was recorded in, and it truly destroys a lot of the careful environment in a single stroke of dialogue.
It looks like you've been taking good care of my sister. Thanks for that. Your sister? Hey!
Let's go!
And 2003 was right in the middle of figuring out how to control a game like this, so they take tank and freeform controls and give you the worst of both worlds, all guided by this action menu to do basically anything. It's how the French would say, turbo garbage. After a few deaths, the terror turns into tedium and you just start brute forcing the answer, squandering lives in the vain hope of finding an exit, which could be a real nightmare when you're doing an escort mission. So even though I agree with the aggressive reviews Siren received, it feels like a shame to wipe this game from the history books. To the determined horror junkie, there is a unique experience to be found, a gem as rough as coal, but one so embarrassingly honest and original that I can't help but recommend you try it. Although, honest and original are 2 attributes I would never give to our final game. Ooh, the spookiest thing of all, a bad transition. If you haven't noticed yet, the glue that binds all these games is how they were cast into the shadow of another title. Simon's Quest was slaughtered by the original, Siren got squashed by Silent Hill, but I cannot think of another game that has been done dirtier than the Callisto Protocol. A brand new IP produced by Glenn Schofield, an artist turned director turned producer. The only problem is, a game he previously worked on came back from the grave to ironically bury this adventure into obscurity. Damn you, Home Alone 2! Yeah, we all saw this coming. A Dead Space remake coming out in the same season, both of which hitting extremely similar notes, but with the added kicker that people already knew they liked Dead Space. Top it off with reviews in the mixed region, and this game did not have a prayer. I'm not even arguing against any of that. I love Dead Space. Not enough to buy it again, but it's still a great game. And if I was looking to get into a horrifying space romp in the middle of winter, I probably would have made the same call. The only problem is that this game has a hell of a lot to offer, and it's sad we'll never get to see its good side shine. Is it an amazing masterpiece? No. They gambled on this wacky inflatable hammer-swinging prisoner approach that definitely didn't change the world of gaming, and most of the story is delivered in this by-the-numbers exact cadence that you figure that it's gonna have. But these aren't bad ideas. Combat around these parts often have you right in the middle of the mix. It can be easy to dispatch one guy, but if you run into a crowd, you have to stay conscious of your back. Pair that with quick shooting pistol flicks and you never settle into a rut. Environments are anything but original, but painstakingly crafted with detail in every corner. I always felt obliged to take the side routes to see how they flesh out this prison down to the last stroke. Everybody hated on these supply crates that have a little jump scare. Come on, it's just a funny little thing. A little shock to the brain, keeps you on your toes. Overall, my position mostly comes from a vacuum, completely taking the comparison away from Dead Space because there is one fundamental difference that we all miss. Looky here. Dead Space is like Alien the same way that the Callisto Protocol is like Alien. Resurrection. A brilliant pioneer of a new genre versus a muddled train wreck of a delivery that's entirely reviled when compared, but you know what? Sometimes you just gotta enjoy some schlock. Cast away your preconception of a skillfully crafted world you dredge through in crusty corridors. Strike that struggle from your mind. Embrace the mindset of dumb action and typecasted characters. Take yourself back to a time when the bald buff guy was the star of the summer action flick, a feast for the eyes that leaves you as soon as you leave the theater. Just look at this introduction. Two sweaty dudes in a tight cockpit where they dump exposition on the player, and look at this delightfully evil captain that just cuts through every scene like a knife. This game is big and goofy and rough around the edge. It's honestly rough everywhere, but commands the silly bravado that's just fun. It's the same kind of tongue-in-cheek, campy attitude we love in indie titles brought screaming into a AAA format. I hope to see a lot more of this moving forward. We don't always need a game-changing, deep mental study of artistic quality and groundbreaking revelations. Sometimes you just want to click off and enjoy. And that idea is the crux of my arguments laid bare on the table. I would never ask anyone to lower their standards, grind through something they don't enjoy. Hell, I don't even expect you to agree with me here. All I'm saying is that it's healthy to give things a genuine shot, even if you're pretty sure you know how you'll feel. The world is filled with creations that will never define its genre, but to forget about them would be missing the point of creating in the first place. I promise you, most of the time you're gonna find a gem in the making, some glint of originality or an idea you haven't come across that makes just a little bit of your time worth it. Take this thing you can buy at Taco Bell. Honestly, the whole premise just disgusts me. How could you ever decide to go to a place like this and this be what you want? It's a nightmare. But I'm not a hypocrite.
Happy Halloween, everyone!
I want to give a big and spooky thank you to Booger Boss, Brumna, Lee, Post Mesmeric, Seth Peacock, Thomas, and Vindalin for their support on Patreon. Consider supporting the channel through Patreon or channel membership on the YouTube thing, whatever that is, and also come to the Discord. That's where we like to hang out.